So how's it going, guys?
Hey, good evening.
Doing well.
Fantastic. Just so awesome over here.
Well, tonight should be a fun conversation. I think we're planning on talking about some fitness tests. So why don't we, I guess, how's your guys' week been?
Well, before we go into fitness tests, I think it's worth clarifying that we're not talking about strength training.
Oh, well, then I wrote down all the wrong notes.
Oh, man.
Weekend was good. Yeah, we spent a lot of time with family, which was much needed.
That is good.
It's been good on my end. I got to visit family over the weekend. It was my dad's birthday celebration, and I got to go hang out with my best friend over in Florence and meet some really cool new people. So a new Russian couple, like young Russian couple, came to town, and they have some stories. They're so funny. And the other thing I've been looking at is testosterone for degenerative disc disease. And it looks like there's some government studies that show testosterone. By the way, everybody, I have degenerative disc disease in my neck. Too young for a fusion, too many for a fusion. And so I'm looking at alternative therapies. Right now, I'm doing neck traction and a high meat, pretty much no carb diet except for vegetables. And that's supposed to help with some supplements. So yeah, I'm considering other things. Stem cells are really good, but they're expensive. So I'm waiting on that one.
Crazy.
Do you have
expensive.
a lot of pain or tingling?
The pain and tingling went away, and right now I just can't fire a good part of my bicep, the lateral head of my tricep, some of my forearm muscles, and it's like significant. It's impacted my workouts for like a year and a half really, really significantly. I've lost 10 pounds of muscle. I just really want to get to 185 with like 10 pounds of body fat, and I was only 10 pounds away. Now I'm about 20. What about you, John?
I've been working on building a playground set for my kids, which has been pretty intense. I definitely taking a lot more time out of each day than I was planning. I was planning on putting in over the weekends, like 8-hour days, and then getting in maybe 1 to 2 hours during the weekdays. And it's more like 12 hours on the weekends. And I feel like I've been on weekdays probably closer to 3 or 4 if I can pull it high. But yeah, it's just been a very rough time, but very rewarding, lots of fun. It's really cool seeing the stuff go up the kids can actually start playing on now. And so I think tomorrow I should have the tube slide up, and we already built the wobbly bridge yesterday. And then we've got a couple ladders up so you can get onto the second floor. We've put up a rock climbing wall. There's going to be a taller rock climbing wall that I plan on building soon. Eventually, we want to have a zip line, which I think will be the most fun part of it. But it's a big undertaking. It's definitely a very large project.
Where'd you find this? Like, what is there a website for playgrounds? It seems like did you design this? It seems like a really, I saw the picture. It seems like a lot.
Yeah, there's I definitely couldn't design it myself. It would take me 5 times as long if I had to figure out all of the different ways to connect everything. But there's a website called Paul's Playhouse, and he sells all kinds of different designs. So I bought one of probably his biggest design that I could find. And then my wife and I I'm tweaking and modifying as I go along to account for any of the variations. So I wanted to have the extra tall rock wall. I wanted to make it about 6 inches taller than it was supposed to be in the original design. I also have my yard on a slope, so I've had to reaccount for all of those things.
Yeah,
Instead of a flat bridge, we did the wobbly bridge. So lots of modifications going into it, but at least having the basic structure, something that I have on a plan, that makes it much easier.
Didn't you say there's like a 5 foot, you had a 5 foot hole, like the posts were like 5 feet deep or something ridiculous because of the slope?
Oh, no, well, yeah, so if you take the top of my yard, which would be the foundation of where, I guess, where the grass is, the highest point to where the grass is at the lowest point that the swing set will be, it is a 5 foot height difference. And that spans across maybe 20 feet. So yeah, there's a huge slope. So we're going to make the part on the slope the swing set. So that way you have a gradated swing so that the upper end of the swing set is here, and then you go down every time you move forward. And that way it gives you some very large swings and a few of the shorter ones.
Okay.
Best will be in about 2 months after they played on it for a while. The sun's going to be shining one Saturday, and they're going to all say they're bored. You're going to be like, I just built, well, we're bored.
Yeah.
Get out there and play on that.
Well, our goal is to make it so that our family is the pride of the neighborhood, that everybody wants to come to our house to play and hang out. And so in order to make that happen, I figured we have to make the most fun thing available, which is, and for all practical purposes, you can do just about as much on this playground as you can at any park or recreation center playground, pretty much anywhere else. Maybe not quite as big, but it's pretty darn close. So that's the plan, though, is to make sure that everybody wants to hang out at our house, and so that way it's easier to take care of kids and I can have an eye on them. That was always my dad's philosophy when I was a kid, is he said, I don't know what's going to happen with my kids if they keep going to friends' houses, so why don't we be the hub where all the kids hang out and play? And for myself and my two sisters, it worked out really well. And then for my one brother, who didn't invite people over and he always went out, ended up being more of the oddball, problematic kid, I guess I should say. What you drinking, Levi?
Protein shake with a zillion supplements in it. Tastes pretty good. A little bit of beetroot powder gives it a little bit of an earthy taste. Also, is a natural, it's a poor substitute for nitric oxide, but substitute for nitric oxide with chopped cocoa. So it's good. It tastes good. Like, it's not bad at all. I'll make you some sometime.
So let's talk about fitness tests. Oh yeah, sorry, forgot about Dross. How you doing?
Skip over Dusty.
Yeah. I had a good good week. Got to spend a lot of time with the family. Went bike riding with the kids. That was a blast. And kind of took my workout to another level. I got a flipping tire now, so that's been pretty fun. I worked out with that twice. Kind of like a tire, like a CrossFit tire.
Yeah. Yep.
So that you flip. And I can get a sledgehammer and bang on it. So I'm trying to get like 1 or 2 days a week where I have it's like a conditioning circuit. So to complement the 5-3-1. But yeah, when I think back over the last week, just a lot of good, evenings and some time just with the kids doing some fun, fun activities, but good stuff.
Yeah, you have a lot of kids too, right?
I have 2. Yeah, I have 2 kids.
Oh, 2. Never mind. I must have been thinking of somebody else. Yep. Either way, let's talk about fitness tests, guys. What do you do with them?
Well, I think first of all, we need to talk about what are they? Why do they happen?
Sure thing.
Cool. I think first of all, fitness tests
are so exciting here.
I know, this is like really edge of your seat content right here. In a nutshell, fitness test. It's the wife or woman testing, giving you crap, doing something in order to try and undermine your frame in order to see, is he really legit? That's the subtext, the subconscious going on. Is he really fit to lead me, is kind of the idea going on there. Now, understanding that most of this is not something women do intentionally, but it's a part of how God seemed it fit for them to operate, and it seems to be pretty much hardwired into the way they operate. So we got to learn how to deal accordingly. Failing fitness tests reduces attraction, undermines your frame. Passing them increases attraction and helps solidify your frame.
I will add that it's not unique to just women. Men also fitness test other men to establish dominance hierarchy. I experienced it this weekend. It was really interesting. There's this older, I don't know, Latin American gentleman that came to hang out for my dad's birthday, and he was, I don't know what it was. I was just like introducing myself normally and stuff, but I could already tell, like, you know, he'd like grab my shoulder, you know, like, and he kind of like lean in and like look me in the eye and be like, "No, buddy, like, you got this wrong." That was, I don't know why I used a Russian accent there. So yeah, I just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, there's definitely some validity to that. The world can definitely fitness test you, but you know, the context of what we're talking about here, there's a misconception too that eventually they'll stop. You know, like the fitness test will stop coming, and that's more of a, in my mind, a red flag that she stops testing you. She's pretty much always going to test you.
I would say that they stop coming for a while, and they'll kind of go and subside and then come back all of a sudden and then go back and forth as, you know, time goes on. So I think that they can definitely take seasons where it seems like things are all kind of back in check, and then they'll rise up for various life circumstances.
Yeah.
So explain for some guys listening, why would it be a red flag for fitness tests to stop?
Well, she wouldn't, maybe she's not seeing you as the leader or the head of the marriage, and she's not seeing a need to, you know, a lot of this happens in the feminine hindbrain, but it's not like she's not seeing a need to, maybe she's given up on you, I guess is the best way of putting it.
There you go.
Yeah. I
she's checked out.
She's
checked out or given up on you.
Like, and you got to worry about a whole nother set of problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that idea that you don't interview somebody that you've already disqualified as a candidate, you know, and so the fitness test is kind of that ongoing evaluation, and if it's not happening, they're done evaluating, and we're not interested.
Yep. So if you've been on the couch every night forever, you know, watching TV, and she's nagging, eventually she's going to be like, whatever, I'll do it myself, or whatever, I'm going out and I'm going to.
Yeah, and some guys think
she'll check out of it.
Yeah, and some of the guys think, great, I win, and now my wife isn't nagging me, and then she's totally checked out of every other aspect of life that you might want her to be involved in or attracted.
Yep.
Right, or if she's just found somebody else who's caught her interest in the first place, so she's not even thinking about you to test you in the first place at all, right?
Yep.
I see that one a lot in my career.
Yeah, I was reading a post on Christian marriage. It was one of the last couple days, and some guy was like, you know, sex is down. My wife's going on for dog walks for like 2 to 3 hours. I'm a stay-at-home dad. And people were like, huh. Like, nobody came right out and said it, but there was some comments like, huh, 2 or 3 hour dog walks is kind of weird. And I'm like, oh, man, like, buddy, she's checked out.
Yeah, as soon as you have somebody else that you're interested in who's filling her feels and she just stops caring, it's very common what I see when people are going through a divorce that they say, you know, we used to fight all the time, and then for some reason the last 2 years there's been no fighting, and they feel like the divorce came out of the blue. It's just really weird for them. But the idea of fitness tests makes that make a lot more sense now, because as I understand it, what's happening is like you guys say, once she's checked out or found somebody else, there's no reason for her to be pushing and shoving and testing your character, because she's getting her feels elsewhere. She's not even thinking about you in the first place, and so you're in a really bad spot there. So I would always be very cautious that if you're not getting tested for too long, that you're moving in a bad direction, and you need to step up your game. And generally speaking, the other reason you might not get tested a lot is because you have passively given up the test or failed it so many times that it's just not worth it in the first place. And you yourself are preemptively giving her what she would want even before she has to ask for it. And so I've seen, in fact, I know I myself was there for a time when I would try to anticipate my wife's needs, being the good Christian, servant leadership guy that I was. And it put me in a spot of, I don't know, it's just weird because my wife wouldn't have to ask me to do things because I would just overtly go ahead and do whatever I knew she needed to in the first place, despite the fact of how unhappy she was the whole time around.
I think it would be helpful to take a look at some examples of shit tests, fitness tests, for those of you who are sensitive to language, and what we do about those. There is a toolkit that's common in Red Pill. I think the best way to walk through that toolkit as far as Muse Mastery, Agree and Amplify, etc., is to have examples at hand. So can you guys think of any examples of tests that have either come your way or ones that you've seen out and about?
Okay, I'm gonna do a little plug, not for myself, but Illimitable Men has a pardon the French here, guys, but the shit test encyclopedia that's very comprehensive. It looks like it takes maybe 10 minutes to read. Not Christian, obviously, but it's really good. One of the tests on there that single guys get a lot, I just noticed this. I was talking to a guy about this. Is I have a boyfriend, and it's like,
so we're talking for single guys now. So do we want to shift gears? Because we started with the married men. The single guy fitness tests, I would say, are probably a different beast we want to talk about. I don't know if we want to talk about this separately or try to mix it in.
That's a different animal.
Maybe separately would probably be the easiest to follow. So since most of you guys are married, well, most of us are married, so all you guys are married. Why don't we talk about those? I think that was a good point, John, and then we can branch on to single stuff.
Well, at the risk of running long on things, I just want to just pitch out there as a thought. So for the person listening who thinks, okay, well, why is it so different for singles and married guys? What really is the difference? And I would actually go so far as to say is I don't know if there's as great a difference in terms of the reasons why or the approach to answering them. I think the big difference is the nature of the test itself as far as what they're going to be testing about. When you're married, your wife knows you, so she knows your buttons to push. She knows what your areas of weakness are. So in some ways, they're much more pointed and direct. When you're with a stranger that you're meeting for the first time or somebody you don't know really well, they're going to throw out all kinds of ridiculous things and see if anything sticks. There was one I saw at a work conference where this gal was attracted to this guy, and it was pretty obvious, and he was giving her no time of day, and she's like, well, you must have a really small penis or something, huh? That's why you're not talking to me. You couldn't handle this. And he just laughed and like literally patted her on the head and turned his back to her, and she was like fuming mad, but she like started playing with her hair and gave all these indicators of interest and made it really obvious. Like within about 30 minutes, she was sitting on his lap, and like it was really funny. But the point is she had no idea what that actually looked like, of course. So she's throwing a dart just kind of in the dark. A married woman knows what she's dealing with there, so she's going to be approaching things on a much different level of familiarity.
Not to mention the fact that there's going to be all kinds of uniqueness with the single sphere, right? There's no situation where my wife, I'm going to, tell her, hey, I'm going to go grab some of this for dinner. Do you want anything? And she's going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I already have a boyfriend. I don't do dates. Right? That's just never going to happen.
That would be hilarious if you said that.
Or, oh, I'm sorry, I don't date short men. Right? You're just not going to get that when you're married. And so there is like you say, the reasons and motivation for them are, I would say, identical, but they're very different in how they manifest and what types of things you're going to hear. So it's going to be a little bit unique trying to recognize a fitness test from a married person versus a fitness test from a single woman. Does that make sense?
Yep. All right.
And a great way to
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say a great way to diagnose, like, is this a fitness test, is the word you is almost always in it. Okay. If the statement involves I or me, that's oftentimes a comfort test. Okay. So that's a whole nother situation. So the statement will oftentimes start with or involve you, like, why didn't you wash the vehicle, or why, why didn't you mow the lawn, or why didn't you pick up my phone call today? It oftentimes has the word you in it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And for those listening, please keep that in mind before you post another post on any kind of forum anywhere where is this a test? How do I pass it? Because that right there probably is going to be one of the solving points for a lot of people, is just realizing what is being driven at.
Yeah. You versus I. Another one that helps me recognize them real quick is the emotions that are involved generally. And so it's probably worth talking about comfort tests, which is the other type of fitness test, right? And so generally speaking, what I've noticed is that the fitness tests themselves come out very angry, accusatory, frustrated, versus the comfort tests, which are more sad and meek and insecure, right? And so the types of emotions that you're working with can really help you get an understanding of, how do I respond to this appropriately? Am I going to try to pass this like it's a fitness test, when in reality she needs to know that everything's going to be okay? Or are you going to try to pass it like a comfort test, when in reality she's trying to fitness test you, and then she just gets upset because she doesn't know what the heck you're trying to do?
We do comfort tests next week.
Yeah, misdiagnosing them can be a pitfall. I mean, another pitfall can be, and I was guilty of this at one point, of I think I termed it one time of being Elmer Fudd hunting fitness tests. You're like, is another one coming? Is that one? Is that one? Is that one? And you can begin to confuse legitimate requests for information or legitimate request for help as a fitness test. So you have to be able to discern, if there's a jar, way up high on the shelf that only you can get, and you get asked to get it, it's probably a legitimate request for help. But
I don't know, man, you might want to green amplify on that one.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the MMSLP test that he gives for how to handle those?
Mm-hmm.
He calls it the Donkey Fiona. So he goes through the Shrek concept and basically says, if she's asking me for something, is this something where, based on her attitude toward me right now, she's acting like Fiona or acting like Donkey, right? Or am I going to identify this as, is that something that I would do? And I think, Levi, you've told me before that you used something similar of saying, hey, is this something that I would do for somebody that I actively am interested in and want to pursue a relationship with, or is this something that I wouldn't do for somebody, even for, I don't know how you were wording it. Maybe it was somebody else was talking to me about that. But basically the idea was that if you find enough value in somebody, there are going to be more things that you're going to be willing to do for them, because you take care of those people that you care about, right? You put investment into the ones that you love. On the flip side, for people you don't care about, then you're going to act very differently in how you handle them. And so part of that is, with the type of request, you can balance out, well, what is it that they're trying to pull here? I don't know if I made any sense there at all. This is why I have to edit some of the things I write before I post them.
All right, examples. Who's got some examples?
So first one that comes to mind, and probably is worth giving some attention to, David and Michal. You guys remember the story between the two of them as the ark is coming back into the city?
Ah, yes. That was, and he slammed that one too. Yeah.
Oh yes, I love this. So David and Michal, is the ark of the Lord. This is from 2 Samuel 6, by the way. As the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had finished offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts, and distributed among all the people, the whole multitude of Israel, both men and women, a cake of bread, a portion of meat, and a cake of raisins to each one. Then all the people departed, each to his house. As David returned to bless his house, but Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, how the king of Israel honored himself today, uncovering himself today before the eyes of his servants, female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself. Right? And so she's clearly accusing him, saying, you should never act like that. Look how horrible you are. And David says to Michal, It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all of his house to appoint me as prince over Israel, the people of the Lord, and I will celebrate before the Lord. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes. What do we call that? When she's accusing him of one thing and he's going to say, I'll be even more than that.
Agree and amplify.
Exactly. But by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor. Right? Basically saying, oh, look how they're going to look at you. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. What do you guys think?
That's an interesting part right there, because it doesn't say that the Lord prevented her from having it. It just says that she had no children. So do you think that David was that David chose not to have kids with her? Because oftentimes, like, the kid that, it'll say like the Lord, prevented her from having kids. The Lord decided to let her have kids. I often
there's a lot of passages where if God closes up somebody's womb, tons of the passages where it very clearly says, and God closed her womb, right? Or that it was God's fault that she was barren. And yet in this one, we get no indication that it came from God. Kind of interesting. Does that mean that the appropriate response to a fitness test is to tell your wife, all right, I'm never having sex with you again?
Ooh, it sounds too
I'm not
much.
sure we're going that way.
I guess
exactly.
if you don't have other wives to, fill that gap.
Right. So what did David have here that made it easy for him to agree and amplify and set hard boundaries?
Abundance.
Abundance, right. And I love that he blatantly boasts that, but by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor. Basically saying, I don't need you. I got all kinds of other girls for wanting me and would love to see me dance in my underwear.
Yeah, not exactly something you're going to hear from your pastor on Sunday morning, huh?
No, I have yet to hear anything like that. That's why I tell people there are no red pill churches out there. Everybody wants to say, oh, my church is red pill.
Yep.
Right? It's not.
No.
What you have at best is a church that preaches headship, is really the closest that I've seen. But you tell me anybody who's going to preach on David and Michal and say, oh, yes, she is fitness testing him to try to break his boundaries and get him in line, and he stands up to her by agreeing and amplifying, showing his abundance mentality, they're not going to talk about those things. And even if they use non-RP wording, I get that. I realize that there are concepts that we can talk about in different terms, right? As a matter of semantics, I can call dread, or I can call it pre-selection in a marital context, or I can call it for what it is and just kind of explain the concept and say, oh yeah, women find men more attractive when they're around other women who are also attractive, right? And so that's an easy, safe way that doesn't use the RP terminology, but you're not even going to find the safe way in the way that pastors will preach on these
right.
things.
The issue at hand is that the actual concept itself is anathema to modern evangelicalism. So
exactly.
So I agree with you in the assessment that there are no red pill churches. There are churches that get headship right, and those are even far and few between.
Yes, even the ones that get headship right are iffy.
I think we should move on to some examples and then how to nuke those for the sake of time.
Yep, I'll throw out an example. We were hosting a board game party a couple years ago. Had a bunch of friends over. There was a guy with his fiance. He had a single beer. All of us are of the conviction that having a few beers is okay. He had a single beer, and somebody offered him another beer. His fiance turns to him and says, "Oh, honey, are you sure? Are you okay? You have to drive home." And his reaction was, get really upset. Yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to, I'm good. Just leave me alone. Very abrasive, and it was very awkward for everybody involved there. So this was a kind of a pattern of behavior that would occur throughout the night. This is one of the more glaring examples where in front of everybody, she is questioning his decision-making. How do you address? Not all at once.
What do you guys think?
Well, we've got a toolkit. So one of the things that I think would be a funny response as far as agree and amplify, oh, I wasn't just getting one more beer. I was going to go ahead and drink the fifth over here, or, something really absurd, or, hey, that's why I brought you along so you could drive, right? Or even something, and that might even sound reasonable. So I think there's a lot of ways that you can kind of like show the absurdity of it, or oh man, honey, you're right. I had that one beer and I'm glad that you're here to pick me up off the floor. Maybe a little bit more barbed in that response, but nonetheless.
That would be a muse mastery approach.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually a number of different. So there's a muse mastery, right? But we talked about that quite a bit tonight.
What would that look like here?
No, I agree. Excuse me. You said agree amplify. There's a muse mastery. That would be like, oh, honey, you're so cute. You worry about me. That's nice. Get me a beer, guys. That's kind of like just making light of what she's saying. You could fog. Fog is like, yeah, you're probably right. You could be right. Just kind of. That's where when I say no, I feel guilty.
I would even with that one be like,
fogging.
oh, have you guys tried this kind of beer? And like just totally change the concept, like change the conversation. It's related, but it's just not even addressing it too.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. How do you guys handle the silent fitness test, which is where you do something that your wife disapproves of? And in the public group setting, she is giving you dirty stares, and it's obvious to everybody in the group that she disapproves of what you're doing. How do you handle that one?
So I don't, and it doesn't happen. That might be weird, but she and I, from the very onset, I put down ground rules of we don't air out dirty laundry. If we have issues, we're going to deal with it later. We're going to pull each other aside. We're going to talk, but we don't air out our dirty laundry in the front lawn. That's a back lawn kind of thing. So, and that has been effective. So I hear thoughts about how I would handle it, but I would highly advise if you don't already have ongoing policy to that end, and if you're in a place where you have the frame to enact it, it solves a lot of other public heartache.
Right. So many people, or at least I can speak from my own personal experience, I've had that same policy, my wife and I did. And even when we were dating, well, before I went all blue pill and everything, there was a situation where we were going on a double date with some friends, and those friends had, oh goodness, it was really bad how the girlfriend was totally disrespecting the guy who is now her husband and just speaking negatively and, openly in front of us, saying, I can't stand it when you do that. Why would you do that in front of them? And it was really awkward. So my wife and I were always clear, we're never going to do that. We're never going to verbally disrespect each other in front of other people. We save that for later. But that did not stop her from being able to give the eye and the dirty looks that she thought were being concealed and hidden, that she, in her mind, she's saying, oh, well, you need to be able to catch me in the moment and see what's going on now, and I can't wait, or else you're going to keep doing this embarrassing thing.
I think the easy answer to that is just wink. Catch your eye and wink. It's like a muse mastery, fogging, and green amplify potentially all together in one shot.
Probably the simplest, safest answer. Keep doing what you're doing.
I actually had gotten into a pattern at one point when I noticed her doing this. When I first found the red pill, my response started being, in front of other people, I would call her out and say, hey, babe, why are you giving me a dirty look right now? And force her to have to come toe-to-toe with it in front of everybody. And
so pressure flip there.
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
that is definitely a pressure flip.
That was fun.
It's another technique we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, I would say that a pressure flip is often really effective, but it's a more advanced move. I think that it takes a little bit more mental acuity, and that's not like a slam on people who don't use it, but I think that so many people are just so stuck in, I just need to learn when to shut up, that it's a ways down the road to get there. But I think that is a great example of a pressure flip.
Yep, and STFU is kind of like the very first, because dread level 1 is learn how to pass fitness test, and STFU is like, ground floor start, just don't say very much, fog, and then you can work into the muse mastery, the agree and amplify, like you guys just said, pressure flip, which is a little tougher to do.
Yeah, and I think that Okay, just a quick comment on STFU and learning when to keep your mouth shut. I think that there's kind of this idea that I need to move on quickly to all these other things, and like if it's appropriate, go for it. But just recognizing when a test is happening is very important on the first step, and then not opening your mouth and trying to ruin things. Like if more guys could just figure pieces of this other stuff later, they'd be well off and much better than
Maybe
a lot
I
of
got
guys.
lost. Do y'all get that lag there?
I didn't get a lag.
No, I think it was you.
My bad. That's my internet's unstable. All right. Well, I think that we'll probably have to save talking about the fitness test for the single guys for another night, because we've got just a few minutes, and I know a few of you guys have said that, myself included, I've got to run pretty quickly today. But anything else we want to say on fitness test for married couples before we head out?
I would just say don't underestimate the importance of learning to identify and react to these appropriately. As somebody who has a wife with lots of very vocal friends, this is where they lose respect and any kind of attraction toward their husband faster than pretty much anywhere else. So this is worth figuring out. And Levi already put it out there as the shit test encyclopedia. Well worth reading through that. Even if just getting the definitions in front of you, you'll start seeing behaviors. You're like, oh, yep, that was that. I missed it. And then you can start adopting more of this in your day-to-day practice.
Mm-hmm.
We can edit this out if we don't want to do this, but we can link it in the post. I feel like linking that test encyclopedia would be handy.
Yeah, it could be done.
Okay.
You guys feel like the
Later,
church
guys.
ever tries to fitness test Jesus?
Just kidding.
He says at the very end of the podcast.
I know.
Yeah, all
Primer
the
for
time.
next time.
Lord, why aren't you giving me this cool stuff? I want something
Oh,
more.
yeah. Prosperity
Well,
gospel all stems from a fitness test idea, right? Of saying, look, we can boss Jesus around by doing this and doing that. We can manipulate Jesus into doing whatever we want. He has to say yes because he made these promises. He said his word up this way, etc. Right?
Yes and amen.
I mean,
You've heard that
arguably, the
one.
whole Pharisees' interaction with Jesus was a bunch of tests along the way, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
handled all of those perfectly. So, yeah, and that hasn't changed very much in 2,000 years.
True.
Yeah,
I
you
wouldn't call
want
that
a couple
part of the
good
church
examples of
to say.
pressure flip. Watch how Jesus handles the Pharisees.
Yeah,
Amen
mastery.
to that. All right, that's probably a bigger question than I should have asked with 2 minutes left. But anyway,
That's all good.
good chatting with you guys.
You just go write a book-long post about it.
Yeah. My days of being able to write long posts twice a week are gone. But I do have
right.
fun whenever I
Good
can.
talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Catch y'all later.